There's a story that back during the time of John the 23rd, Blessed John the 23rd, back in the late 50s and early 60s, that he oversaw the construction of a new building in the Vatican. And as was the custom, the architect would send over the blueprints for the Pope to look over. And usually that was more of a ceremonial thing, not that the Pope is an architect as such, but just so that the Pope could look it over if he had any suggestions, if he saw anything. But it was really done more as a courtesy. And the John the 23rd received these blueprints, and when they were sent back to the architect, he noticed there was just one little notation on the side of one of the pages that said "Non sumus angeli," "Non sumus angeli." And at first, the architect, kind of puzzled. He wasn't sure. His Latin was a little rusty, so he looked it up, and he found out that "Non sumus angeli" means we are not angels, and puzzled him even more. Why would the Holy Father write this particular notation in the margin of the blueprints? And until he took a little closer look at his blueprints and realized that there were no bathrooms in the plans for the building. And the Pope was reminding him that, we are people, we're human beings, we're not disembodied spirits. We do have certain bodily and physical needs that need to be attended to, and certainly the lavatories would be needed in this building. I tell this story because it kind of highlights the first reason why I'm a Catholic, which is that I really believe that Catholicism understands human nature. Catholicism understands the fact that we're not angels, that we're not disembodied spirits, that we live in a physical world. And at the same time, we're not animals either. We do have a spiritual self and a spiritual reality to us, and that these two things work together. Sometimes they struggle against each other, but ideally, with God's grace, they work together, and they're really indispensable. What we celebrate during this time of Easter is the resurrection, is the fact that one day we will rise. All the dead shall rise, and shall rise in glorified bodies. And that Catholicism understands this and really sees our human nature as being good. Now, I bring this up because to me, when I studied various religions and various philosophies when I was younger, what I saw was, for instance, in some of the Eastern religions that had a very negative view toward the body, that had a very negative view toward matter and toward creation. One professor I had put it that for many Hindus, and if there are any Hindus out there, I invite you to correct me on this. This is I don't pretend to speak definitively here. This is just one of professor's opinion that the worst day of our lives was the day we were born, because we were born into this world of suffering and of strife, and that our greatest hope is to die and to pass on into the next stage, which is to dissolve into nothingness, which is to totally lose our consciousness and lose our identity. And really, the Catholic answer, I guess, is that no, creation is good. If we look at the creation story, that is the great refrain that keeps on going through that first chapter of Genesis, that indeed creation is good. Flawed because of sin, flawed because of our own shortcomings, but in its essence, good. And Catholicism really does, I believe, understand this and teaches this. When Christ came and to offer us his salvation and his grace, it's not simply to cover up our dirtiness or to cover up our evil, but it's truly to transform us into being what we were created to be, and to perfect within us that image of God that we have inside ourselves. So I see within Catholicism a very positive, yes, humanistic outlook, keeping in mind that yes, there are flaws, There are weaknesses that we have. I would say Catholicism also understands our bodiliness in the sense that it understands how we learn, how we take in information, how we learn new things, which is through our senses. We perceive the world around us with our eyes, with our ears, through our hands, through touch, through taste, through smell. All these senses work together, and through them we learn. We come to know the world, and we come to know the things around us. And it's how we come to know and to learn the faith. When you walk into a Catholic church, the thing that you're going to notice is the stained glass windows that hopefully are actually showing stories from Scripture, stories from the life of Jesus, stories from the lives of the saints. I have to admit, nothing disappoints me more than walking into a church and just seeing abstract, impressionistic stained glass windows that really don't represent anything. They're just meant to be purely decorative. They really should be also somehow educational, somehow evangelizing. We see statues of the saints and of Jesus. We have the tabernacle there with the red candle. During the service, we may have incense being used. We have music being sung. We have bells being rung. The old smells and bells, as it's sometimes affectionately, sometimes not so affectionately referred to. But all those things are to take us up, take up all our senses up into this realm of worship, where our whole being, our minds and our hearts and our whole body is brought up into this act of worship. It involves the whole person, not just a part of who we are. And so really for these reasons, it's a big reason why I am Catholic, that it understands us. It understands who we are. We have a God who is not distant from us. This whole notion of the incarnation, of God taking flesh and becoming a human being, is terribly scandalous to some other religions. The idea that God would take on matter, dirty, disgusting, corrupted matter. Yes, God did this to show how close he really is to us. Really, I don't believe that God did this because he had to. He did it because he wanted to. He didn't do it because he needed to know what it was like to really be human, to know what it was like to really have the feelings that we have, but just to show us that, no, he really does. Jesus came to earth, was born of a woman, lived the life of a man here on earth, went to wedding feasts, performed miracles at wedding feasts, ate in people's houses, enjoyed friendships. When he healed people, quite often he would use the power of touch. We think of the time when he cured the blind man by mixing a paste with saliva and mud and smearing it on the person's eyes. Did Jesus really need to do that? Of course, he could have had the power just to think it, and the man would have been cured. But there was something he understood about the need of touch, the need of to feel, the need to feel that intimacy, and that physical contact that we have within the heart of all of us. Christ understood that, and the church understands that. And that is a very powerful reason why I have remained a Catholic.